I get everyone to come to order. It's 3 o'clock, and this is a workshop, and it's a county event, so we will start on time and end on time. I get everybody to please stand for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Our Heavenly Father, thank you for the opportunity for us to come together and do the business of the county. We'd ask that you give us guidance and patience as we work through these problems, that these are countywide problems and they need countywide answers. We ask for knowledge of your will and the power to carry it out. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Attention to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. We're going to get right into it. We'll start with the Solid Waste Authority landfill expansion presentation, Ed Marr and consultants.
Good afternoon. Since we last met, our office, we've talked over some of the things that we presented during our budget process, and we talked over the landfill project again. And so today what we thought we would do is just give a brief overview of where we are, where we're going, and then open up to questions. I'm sure you all have questions that you'd like to get answered, and we have Craig Fortner with Garrett and Moore here. He's our engineer. We'll do the landfill construction process when we get into that phase, if we get into that phase. And then we have Tom Ballou and Wayne Beam with Beam & Associates here to talk about the principal consultants who have been working on the Army Corps permit process. And that's really where we'll start. A while back in 24 actually, when we went back through our notes, we had started the discussion again to look at our solid waste management plan and what we're going to do about the capacity issue that was looming. And the discussions lended themselves towards looking for on-site capacity. There were several issues that we addressed, and we'll go over some of those here in just a little bit, but just to kind of summarize it, looking at transfer station operations, looking at other landfill sites located within the county, looking at changing what we collect at the landfill. There was a host of things that we looked at. And so through that process, then we pulled together a plan to start looking at a permit application to the Army Corps of Engineers to begin the process, and that's where we're at today. We submitted that plan back in December of 25. The time for the public comment period ended in January, and we just recently received our letter back from the Corps. Matter of fact, we had a meeting this morning with the Corps to talk about some of the additional information that they're seeking from us. But by and large, what we're planning on doing as we move forward through this process is to go through, review the comments from the Corps, review the comments that the Corps received, respond to those in kind, and then be able to move forward, if possible, with additional process through the Army Corps of Engineers. If successful, the next phase would be submitting a permit application through South Carolina Department of Environmental Services. That's for the actual construction and operation of the landfill itself. Again, there are 3 sites that we're considering. The first site, Site 1, is just to the right of the scale house. There are restrictive covenants on some of the property that's in there. Site 2 is backed by our composting facility. It also has restrictive covenants in it, a total of 76 acres between the 2 sites. And then the third site is back on what we consider the 100 acres back towards the back of the property. And there's some wetlands back there, but they are not under restricted covenants. There's 20-some acres back there. In total, there's a little over 100 acres, 100.2 or something on that order. And so those are the things that we're looking at with the Corps. How are we going to address those issues? Obviously, the concern that we have is with the capacity that exists today. Right now, we have a 2029 capacity date for the C&D landfill. That's a Class 2 construction and demolition debris landfill. That's where all your wood materials, your bulk waste materials, and all those things that come in go to that facility. Then your traditional garbage facility, the one where your normal household garbage goes, is your Class 3 landfill. That's MSW materials. And that facility right now, based on existing disposal patterns, will take us out to about 2051. We're beginning the planning process beginning July 1 of this year, and that planning process requires us to ensure for disposal capacity for the county for the next 20 years. That puts us out at 2047. This will be the last solid waste management plan process that we'll be able to complete where we can ensure at least 20 years of capacity for a portion of our waste stream. Once we get beyond this plan, we will need to have other facilities or other plans in place to address the disposal needs for the county. What we're trying to address during this first phase, though, is the most critical need, and that's the C&D materials. Those materials are the ones that are going to be done in 2029 if we don't do something. Now, the plans that we have in place call for additional capacity, on-site capacity, and that capacity will be coming online as fast as it can. But the reality is, as we talked over the last several days, is that it's probably 7 years out through all the permitting, through all the design process that is involved in this. It's probably going to be 7 years before we could even begin to accept materials. So there is going to be a certain amount of time that's devoted to disposing of the waste in a co-disposing manner in our Class 3 landfill. Our goal is to limit that as much as possible. We're going to try to divert as much waste as we can through recycling. We're going to try to process as much waste as we can through our shredding operation. And we're going to look to do other things educationally wise on waste reduction activities, anything that we can do to divert those materials. Again, this is a process that we came through a long discussion process, evaluating all the different options, looking at the financial interests, looking at the operational impacts, and what would be in the best interest of the residents and businesses of this county. And with that, I think we're ready to answer questions. I think everybody's fairly familiar with the operation and where we're at today in terms of what we do out there. And really, this permit process is just a continuance of that out to about 2068. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. Our consultants are here to answer some of the technical things that you may have on to ask, but I'll open the floor up to anybody.
Anybody have any questions? All right, we'll move on to our next speaker. Unless there was any, okay, we'll move on to our next speaker, Jen.
Good afternoon. Just briefly, you have in front of you a summary of our budget. The main revision that we made to our budget had to do with the landfill expansion and mitigation. We had a little over $21 million in our capital budget for that. And after discussion, decided to remove that option from the budget, from the capital this year, with so many unknowns, not knowing where we stand currently, not having approval for any of it, not knowing any of the actual cost. So we did remove that from our capital budget for this year. So that's the main revision that we made to our budget overall, was for the landfill expansion project. We did leave a small portion, a little around $300,000 in our budget, just for engineering, consulting, and anything we might need. Like I said, if we see that we get approval, we see that this is something that we can move forward with, we see that we may need funds in this next budget year, of course, we will come back and amend our budget. If we see that it's not going to be until 2028, that'll be something that we'll address as we're preparing that budget. So other than that, like I said, there were just some small little cleanup that we did, but that was the main revision to our budget for 2027.
Anybody have any questions? Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Why not do this? All right. Next, we're going to open it up to public input. Can I, just by show of hands, can anybody came here to talk for public input? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you've ever been to any of the public input that this county council has, if there's two issues or two sides, we try to be balanced and fair and let one side go and another side go. I don't know where y'all are on this thing, but young lady on the back is a lawyer. I think you have a time crunch or a time schedule. We'll start with you, and then we'll just go from there, okay? You can come up to the podium. I'll remind everybody what the rules are. We get 5 minutes, and
Thank you. I don't think I'll need the full 5 minutes, but my name is Monica Whalen. I'm a staff attorney at the South Carolina Environmental Law Project, or we're called SCELP for short. So SCELP submitted comment letters to the Department of Environmental Services and the Army Corps on behalf of multiple individuals and organizations, including the Coastal Conservation League, Friends of Lewis Ocean Bay, the League of Women Voters of Horry County, the South Carolina Native Plant Society Grand Strand Chapter, the Waccamaw Audubon Society, and the Waccamaw River Keeper and Winyah Rivers Alliance. These individuals and organizations all oppose the landfill expansion as it's currently being proposed. Filling in over 100 acres of wetlands is absolutely egregious, and we urge that the council support further exploration into different alternatives. And for your convenience, I printed out copies of the letters that we submitted. There's 2 of them here. And I can also provide electronic letters as well. So there's concerns about water quality, flooding, and overall the fact that there's restrictive covenants in place that are supposed to protect the wetlands for 2 of the sites.
You're saying there's restrictive covenant?
Yes, it was mentioned in the previous presentation, but for the proposed C and D cell sites, there's currently restrictive covenants in place that intend to keep the area natural forever.
Who filed those?
They were filed by the Solid Waste Authority as previous mitigation. And it's up to the Army Corps and DES to decide whether those restrictive covenants can be amended. So you would need their approval before they could be amended on top of the permit applications.
So that's
We've got, there's 3 sites, 2 are the restricted covenants, and the third one has about 100 acres of wetlands.
Well, in total, there's 100 acres of wetlands, or over 100 acres of wetlands that are being proposed to be filled. And about 2/3 of the over 100 acres are protected under restrictive covenants. Any further questions?
Oh, ma'am,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
are we doing a traditional public input where we don't respond, or are we?
Well, that's what we normally do.
Sorry.
We're here for their benefit,
That's
but
my
Dennis
fault.
had a question, so.
Well, if we're gonna ask a question, I was gonna ask a question of the attorney if she'd step back up. Or do we not just need
Well, I
to
guess
listen?
I guess the Wild West is here. Come on.
It's okay, it's
Come on up
okay.
here, young lady.
No, I yield. Let's
No,
try
no,
to,
let's
some
rock.
of the regular
Let's rock and
protocol.
roll. Ask your question, sir.
You wanna take, okay. I can appreciate your concern about the wetlands. All these people that are concerned about the wetlands, what is their solution to do with the trash?
So in the second comment letter, we described some combinations of alternatives, such as increasing recycling, but also with the alternatives analysis that has been provided to the Army Corps. When they looked at other sites, they took like an average of the amount of wetlands that could be impacted. They didn't do like the full process for each of the individual sites, so we could also look to other sites as well. And then there's also the option of sending C and D waste to other places. I know the flow ordinance allows that in this county. But it's really not up to SCALP and these organizations to come up with alternatives. It's really the applicant that's supposed to through the alternatives analysis.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
Can
you.
just, because it came up, when you say alternative sites, you mean away from where the current footprint of the solid waste authority is, like other sites within the county that are not developed for landfill usage right now?
Correct, or really any alternative sites. Like I said, I'm not the expert on where those sites are. It's really up to the applicant.
Yeah, understood.
But we really emphasize looking at like a combination of alternatives. In the alternatives analysis, it said that replacing improving capacity 100% through recycling was non-feasible, but increased recycling could reduce the full footprint of the amount of like the alternative site, if that makes sense.
Thank you, ma'am. All right. Who else? Come on up here. I know you don't need any introduction, but when you get there, if you just tell us your name for the record. And we're going to go back to the traditional way of doing it, because these people came here to give us their input, and we want to hear from them. We had the experts up there. If we had any questions, we could ask the experts who have the answers for that. But these are people that sign up for public input, and we're going to let them talk for their 5 minutes.
Well, first of all, Good afternoon, friends. And I'd like to thank all of y'all for listening to me whenever I had conversations with different ones of you. But I'd especially like to thank Mr. Hardy, who spent a long time with me and my friend Tammy Baker yesterday morning, and he very generously gave much of his time to discuss this issue. And I'm kind of want to say thank you, and I'm happy to hear that some of the things that I've been talking about are happening, especially the plan that's going to happen that Mr. Marr said they were going to start doing the solid waste management plan in July. And today's the first time I've heard about that, but that's a very good thing. And Mr. Hardy and I talked about that yesterday, that that was a very important point, that the plan, what we do in this county has to be consistent, or should be consistent with the plan that is on file with DES. And the last plan that the Solid Waste Authority properly prepared in 2022 that's on file with DES suggested an alternative that Mr. Anderson might be interested in, just one of many alternatives that the Solid Waste Authority has looked at in the past that could be feasible alternatives even now. And the one that's in the 2022 plan for the construction waste said that it would be commingled with municipal solid waste in the Line landfill. That was the plan in 2022 for 20 years, and that was the only thing that they suggested at that time to be, what they were going to do with C&D waste. So, and also I did send the council a copy of my comments that I just sent to South Carolina DES. And that includes a lot of different alternatives. But I'm very thankful that there's going to be a proper planning process. And I hope that that provides an opportunity to examine lots of alternatives that the proper committee would be considering. And I'm sure all of you are aware that it's a 15-member committee that should be getting together to discuss the alternatives. That's their job. And according to state law, that's their job. So they'll be looking at the alternatives, and hopefully they can use some of that money that's in the budget for consultants to get the consultants to help them do some financial analysis of the different alternatives. Although we need to keep in mind that in most cases, the Army Corps, when they're deciding about filling wetlands, cost is not typically, the top issue of theirs. If there's a feasible alternative that might be more costly, that's what they're supposed to be looking at. So just want y'all to know some of those things. But once again, thank you. And it seems like y'all must be getting things going in the proper direction as far as the planning and everything, and I thank y'all for that. So,
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for coming out. We appreciate it.
Okay. Who's next? Come on up here.
You just please tell us your name and.
Yes. Hi, my name is Renee Ruff. I've met some of you in the room before, and I thank you for taking time to speak with me, and I hope to have continued conversation. And this is a big one. I'm not a lawyer. I'm a resident here. I've been here for 5 years, and all the information I get is by coming to these meetings, reading about permits, and just kind of trying to understand what you all are having to deal with as well. It's not an easy conversation, but it's something that needs to be had. Elephant in the room, the PFAs. We got permits that allow forever chemicals to be pumped into the garbage facility. That is something that the EPA states there is no legal amount that is good for human consumption. So going forward, where do we go? Incinerators? I mean, we've kicked the can so far down the road, we have to deal with it now. I don't know the engineering, when was the last time a geology report was done? When was the last time those pipes were checked? When were those pipes put in? that are pumping this water into the landfill. There just needs to be some real conversation about what we can do moving forward to make sure there's some checks and balances put in place, and that the people in the county and in this room, this building, everywhere, are looked out for. There's a lot of monies to make some good decisions, and we look to you to help us with that. So I just hope that the council really sits back and takes a look at these PFAs and what they're doing and cause for concern. So let's have some real discussions and let us know what we need to do to help you. Recycling programs. We do it in Wild Wing. Let's get this implemented more through the city. We have to do what we can for future generations. And what legacy do you guys want to leave? I leave you at that. Thank you, council.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate it. Anybody else? Come on up here, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Sherry Irvin, along with James Irvin. We reside at 4551 Cole Road, Conway, South Carolina. We are one of the adjacent property owners to this mess, I guess you want to say. We have deep concerns about this. Our property's there, and when we received the card from the Army Corps of Engineers, that was just like a kick. It's like, holy Toledo, where do we live? Well, in a recent interview, Ed Marr stated that they are considering the property owners. Ed has never contacted none of us. My well for my water is there. So when they do sell 1 and 2, that is very adjacent to my property. So at about 6:10 in the morning, you can go out in the back and you hear beep, 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 slam, slam, them dumping, whatever. Now that is going to continue to be closer. The noise is going to be more horrendous. We'd just like to be considered. My property is going to depreciate like no other, along with the other non-adjacent but around the area. Nobody don't live that he's coming to in those areas. But it's going to affect my property. They've not considered me, or I don't feel they have. And the water supply is just horrendous. I mean, what are we going to be drinking? What are we drinking? Now that makes me wonder. But they've not contacted us. But they're concerned about us citizens. I would like to know when that starts, because running to other municipalities to get approval when they don't even provide the landowners with anything. But yet they have a plan for everybody they go to, but they don't even consider us. I mean, it's hard to do that when you can't trust them, when they don't even come to you with any information. That's putting my health at risk. It's even more so now when they move all that closer to me. So anything that I have, would I want to leave that to my heirs, whether they want to continue to live there? Vacation? Probably not, because they'll be closed down and my family will still be there. Are they going to be getting sick? It happens every year, people. Municipalities close down, people get cancer, they just start dying. We don't know what's there, you know, and we're not going to know. But that's all I'd like to say. We are human. We're not the wetlands. We're not displacing the animals. We are human beings, but we are treated as such in their little eyes of their plan. But nothing's been put down. That's the thing. You go to the meetings and you hear this, 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 but it's not like this, 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 this. We tried this, this, this. We went here, here, here. It's just all verbal. It'd be nice to be on a PowerPoint. Okay, we went here to look at 100 acres of land. We went here. No, it's not feasible because of this. It's just all verbal. something needs to be in writing, but that even so isn't true, because in 2022, they had a plan, and where are we now? It was supposed to last for a long time, and 2026, and we're in the dump, literally. But I do hope you consider, because all that flow is gonna come down here. What happens when the river walk gets flooded? Storefronts, it's gonna happen. But that's just all I'd like. Consider us as people that are around that, not just living up in the hills or in a nice home in a subdivision 20 miles away making decisions that's gonna affect these people here. Because it's gonna affect us. We're gonna have floods, we're gonna have contaminated water, soil. Nobody don't seem to care about getting that taken care of. But that's just my thoughts, but please, I hope you make an informed decision, not just for the dollar of the tipping fees, but for us as a human being. That's all I have to say, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for coming out. I see somebody with their hand raised over here, and then you'll be next.
Good afternoon. I apologize for my attire. We just had a big litter cleanup on Red Bluff Landing, so with Sam's Club. So I'm a little bit of a mess and I'm dirty because we picked up about 200 pounds of trash just a few minutes ago, so I didn't have time to change. But I'm Deborah Buffkin. I'm the Executive Director of Winyah Rivers Alliance, and I didn't prepare a speech, but I do want to come up here and speak for the wetlands and for the river. I'm not quite as soft-spoken as some of the people that have spoken. I want to say there's not an option whenever it comes to water, when it comes to our wetlands. It's not an option. It shouldn't be an option, because everyone around the world, the main thing we need more than anything else is clean water. We can't do without it. So I wish the council would get that perspective and use that perspective that there's not an option when it comes to clean water and destroying the wetlands. And if you're looking at economic development, economic growth, how much money do you think these rivers and wetlands bring into the county and into the state with hunting and fishing, wildlife, bird watching? How much do you think that brings in? Boating, skiing, kayaking? It brings a lot of money to the area. And you destroy those rivers and those wetlands, you're not going to have these tourists coming in. So, like I said, that's not an option. Clean water is not an option. It should never be. I think that should be the top of the list of any legislator, any representative. That's extremely important. And of course, you know that whenever you destroy an acre wetland, you know you get over 100 million gallons of flood water there that is stores that's gone. Just 1 acre wetlands. So we have to think about the flooding too, the resiliency too, and the water quality. And somebody mentioned PFAS, P-F-A-S. We just did a research study, and you're getting ready to see it. We haven't promoted that, or we haven't done any media on that yet. On all 7 rivers of the Winyah Bay watershed, which we have a river keeper on every river of the Winyah Bay watershed, also called the Lower PD Basin. We did a PFAS study with Dr. Till Hannibal at Coastal Carolina University, and we have found PFAS on most of our rivers, and we have found PFAS below the landfill. The Waccamaw pretty much above the landfill is pretty good, but you get below the landfill, we have found PFAS, and that number will come out, and I'm kind of announcing it now somewhat. But we have found PFAS below the landfill, and that's cancer-causing chemicals. And we have found them in high levels in different areas as well. And I think we had a county council member we reached out to about some PFAS on the coast as well, and we're getting ready to bring that out too. And we have notified DES of all these numbers. But there are chemicals. So we have to be careful what's coming into the landfill. And like I said, expanding that landfill into the wetlands, that's not an option. I'm sorry, you have to look at something else. Because whenever you destroy the wetlands, they are filters for the water, and they filter the water to make sure we have clean water. And that's not an option, and that's why I want to speak on that. We appreciate you. We appreciate tonight the county council is looking to vote on a 15-foot buffer. Our riverkeeper is going to come tonight and speak on that. We appreciate you guys thinking about the wetlands on that to add buffers, because a lot of the other counties, for example, Georgetown just voted and approved a buffer in Georgetown County. I'm sorry, I'm getting tied up. But we appreciate you so much. But like I said, our wetlands are not an option. Water quality is not an option. And we need to make sure that we protect our wetlands. And I thank you guys so much.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming out.
My name is Ann Hahn Rimsky. I'm from originally upstate New York. I appreciate the young lady talking about the forever chemicals. There's a saying, if you don't learn from your history, you're doomed to repeat it. I need to ask you guys, someone, do the research, go back 30 years or so to Hoosick Falls, New York. Doctor couldn't figure out why all these people were having cancer. He started checking, he started doing his research, he checked the water. That area was full of payoffs from a company that had gone out of business. Another company had bought it. They found barrels of this stuff out in the fields, rusting. Thankfully, the farmers were spared, but they could not have a restaurant in town. They had to bring in water for months, weeks and months, and they had to try and find a filtering system. It failed the first time. They had to redo it. It was horrible. But what was worse was that nobody would recognize that this was so dangerous. Only that doctor. They found payoffs further downstream in that Hoosick River affecting other communities. How far are you going to allow payoffs to affect us? Now, if you're of the theory that everybody over 65 should be dead, keep it up. We will be. But many of us are living longer. I moved down here to get out of the Northeast, to get out of terrible weather, expense and everything, and I come down here and find out I'm facing payoffs down here. What gives? Figure out, go back and research about how bad that was. Nobody would step up. Nobody. The governor ignored us, said it wasn't important. Even EPA was not very helpful. Go back and look that stuff up. It will repeat itself here. History does repeat itself if you do not step in and change direction.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks for coming out. It's time for one more. Yeah, with your hand.
Hi, I'm Marla Jones. I have a little bit different view. During the mitigation of 2004-2005, I actually sold land, about 20-some acres, to the landfill for mitigation. I put the clause in that it could never, ever be, it had to remain into perpetuity wetlands that were protected. I would have not sold it if I knew it was possible that I would be here today. Now, Charleston County and Georgetown County are trying to protect the wetlands, and there was a recent, and I apologize, my figure comes from the News and Courier, that the wetlands in Charleston saved them about $23 billion a year in water mitigation from flooding. I don't know how many people were here in 1999 when we had the 1,000-year flood, but I don't think that Mother Nature does it every 1,000 years. We are getting more and worse weather. The road to 501 was flooded going into Conway, the high part. The road coming into Conway to the old bridge was flooded. I lived on Lee's Landing then. And there was so much water. Where's the water gonna go? We've already lost so much of the land that being paved over that it absorbs water. Can you guarantee us insurance companies aren't gonna pull out? Can you guarantee these claims? I mean, it's not when or if, it's when. It's gonna happen again. And I'd like somebody to tell me where that water's gonna go. I'll tell you where it's gonna go. It's gonna go in your house. At that time, I did water mitigation for a living, so I saw a lot of it. Crabtree Creek flooded. So you guys need to look at the 1999 pictures from Floyd. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for coming out.
I don't know what I did this. There's no question. I just wanted to state.
Yeah, you gotta go up there and identify yourself. Ma'am?
Can I speak?
What? Not one at a time.
Oh, I thought I was
You was here on time. You were late. We'll try to put you in.
Can I speak?
Yes, ma'am? You were talking to me, right?
Pardon me?
She didn't hear me.
Oh, okay.
I came
I said
back.
we're gonna try to fit you in. Let him talk one at a time, okay?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Hey guys, my name is David Huggs and I write for Myrtle Beach SC News. we've written ad nauseum about this item, and I'm not here, this is not a gotcha moment. You guys, I believe in all of you guys. I know you're trying to do the right thing, and I know you're planning as wisely as you know how. I'm gonna be enjoying the, as my family has since 1980, I'm gonna be enjoying the Conway River Fest this June. The problem I have is all of the right constituents aren't coming to the table as one, and the burden's placed too high on one entity, Solid Waste Authority and the Horry County Council. Tourism, 75% of our waste is coming from tourism, guys. Brad Dean's not here, excuse me, forgive me, Matt Pavarnik's not here. We spoke yesterday, he's interested in this. Also, cities, North Myrtle Beach, Georgetown County. We all live in the same community. We all drink the same water. 95%, this is according to EPA, I've written this in our writings, 95% of all landfills leak PFAS. And I know Deborah's going to release her study, but the EPA says our drinking water in the Waccamaw River is 12 times above safe for PFAS. This is your moment. This is an opportunity. If we'll all come together, this is our moment to be the white knight. No one wants their kids drinking unsafe water. And let me say this. You guys don't want your kids drinking unsafe water, but we're starting to live in a third world America. Everywhere, not just in Horry County, everywhere. Because everyone gets into their own little kingdom, and it's about their kingdoms. This $12.1 billion settlement that Brandstrom Water and Sewer is working towards, I don't know what percentage of that goes to lawyers, and I don't want to offend any lawyers in the room, but it's typically 40%. $12.1 billion is a lot of money. It can do a lot of things. If we'll all come together, resources are going to be there. There are alternatives galore. I live in an age, I use a lot of interruptive stuff. Every 3 months, technology interrupts itself. And there's stuff coming online now with these scrubbing incinerators, with these superoxidized water treatment centers. Guys, by the time the money gets here, these facilities are going to be that far along. They're going to be scalable. So I pray this. Pray that you would think about your grandkids, think about our grandkids, and let's come together. Let's put all the constituents in a room. But lastly, beg your state legislator, beg them to mandate testing for PFAS at this treatment facility. There's no state law currently. Lead. Be the model for us. Lead. Demand they test for PFAS regularly and routinely. Thank you for your time. I think the world of all of you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, come on up here. We're out of time, but we're going to hear from you.
Thank you.
Smart man. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Hear from her one way or the other.
Thank you. I got here as soon as I could. I'm Patricia Milley, and I live in Quail Creek Village. And all of you are concerned about water. I am too, but I'm also concerned about us becoming a desert. I grew up here. In the 50s, we never watered our farm. We never watered anything we planted but when we planted it. And the other day, I looked out in my pear tree, the baby pears had fallen off from lack of water. And it never dawned on me to water a pear tree. I thought it had it made. So we're running out of water. We're not only going to have dirty water, we're going to have no water. And my solution is like your wetlands are the nursery for the food chain. Everything starts in the wetlands. You put sewage in the wetland at Long's about 20 years ago to experiment to see if the swamp could filter the water, and it killed the whole swamp. I went later and saw it. It was dead. So it's a fact. Now, on preserving our water, we need trees. And trees are fountains that bring the water up into the air and it comes down as rain. And now we're getting less and less rain. If you'll go to California, they have concreted their rivers and the kids skateboard on them because the rivers have gone run dry And when it rains, all that water goes down that concrete to the ocean, and their water's wasted, what water they get. So my thing is that with all these developments, you need to put 30 feet of trees between the middle where the houses back up against it, and those trees will put water into the air, and they will act as windbreaks against hurricanes. Then you need to put a 30-foot break around the development, and down every road, you need 30 feet of trees on both sides. You're going to have to start planting trees, or we won't have any water. And my thing is, if you put a canal from North Myrtle Beach out to the ocean, what's going to keep the ocean from coming down the Waccamaw and the Waccamaw being salt? I think that canal is a crazy idea to try to divert floodwaters to the Atlantic. It might flow the opposite way. You better have a good engineer before you build that canal. And what else am I thinking about? Oh, the deeds. The developers write the laws. In our development, the land adjacent to the open space is in the developer's name. He never gave us a deed. So every development in this county better make sure they have the deed to their open space. And to me, the county should have that deed, because the other open space, I'll have to pay the taxes as long as I live, and then I hope my children will pay it, because the deed is in the LLC, and they're dead and gone, and it cost me thousands to find all the heirs to that open space. So I'll pay the taxes as long as I live and tell my children to pay the taxes. But that should be under Horry County deeds, just like Collins Park. Every open space in this county should be deeded to the county and tax-free, so that it doesn't get sold to be developed as the adjacent property. I think I've covered all my issues, but really, we need new laws on trees, and you've got to prevent a desert. I'm serious.
Yes, ma'am.
This climate has changed due to cutting the trees.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
On behalf of County Council, I'd like to thank all of y'all for coming out. We understand this is a very serious topic. That's why we've taken the time and the money and the expense to have this workshop, so we can hear from you. Under the rules, we can only hear so many. I think it's been a broad base, and you've got some really good points. We're going to keep going here, but we're going to close public input for now and turn it over to County Council. Who wants to go first? Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I have on this letter from South Carolina Environmental Law, at the bottom of the first paragraph, it says, for the proposed expansion, the applicant seeks to impact 102.4 acres of freshwater wetlands, many of which are associated with, Starrett Swamp, and are protected under restrictive covenants. And if they're protected, how can we affect them?
That's a great question. That's why we're here.
So who has the answer to
Who
that?
gets to volunteer the answer?
Let's see if Mr. Marr, does he have the answer to that one?
Good afternoon. My name is Tom Ballou. I'm an environmental consultant. I'm part of the consulting team for this project. I've been doing environmental consulting since 1980. I've worked in Horry County for decades now. I've walked over thousands of acres here, so I'm very familiar with the details of the wetlands and the environment of Horry County. To answer your question, sir, about the mitigation, those protected wetlands are protected under restrictive covenants that were issued pursuant to previous permitting expansions of the landfill. They're legal documents that are controlled by the Corps of Engineers and the Department of Environmental Services. There's a mechanism under those restrictive covenants that allows them to be removed under certain circumstances, one of which has to do with a determination of the public interest in the removal of those protections. The other is the ability to replace the mitigation value of those wetlands. Those wetlands were offered as mitigation for previous wetland impacts. The proposed plan for this project includes complete replacement of the mitigation value of the protected wetlands, plus additional mitigation for the actual impact of the wetlands, all of which is covered under Corps of Engineers practices and regulations and procedures. So there is a very well-defined process to go through that's very quantitative to result in a full replacement of the mitigation value of those affected wetlands.
So the Corps has the authority to remove the restrictions, the deed
That's correct.
restrictions?
And it's a cooperative determination made with the Department of DES and the Corps of Engineers.
My question is who, like this lady who indicated that she had sold a number of acres to the Solid Waste Authority with deed restrictive covenants in the deed. Now, who placed the restrictions? Was it the Corps?
The restricted covenants were recorded by the property owner, in this case the Solid Waste Authority, and it names the Corps of Engineers and DES as, I guess you could say, interested parties, so to speak.
How does, just for instance, I don't know if this is the case or not, I'm just asking a hypothetical question, but let's just say her 20 acres of wetlands were included in the pod that we're looking to. How do you remove her deed restrictions?
Well, she didn't own the property anymore, so they...
But she restricted the property before she transferred it, so she's the only one that can remove the restriction.
Well, it depends on the wording of the restricted covenants, but it's ultimately...
I'm a real estate lawyer, you don't have to tell me about restricted covenants.
I don't know the specifics of her particular transaction of that land. I don't know if it's even one of the affected wetlands.
It might not be. I just don't understand how you can remove a restrictive covenant. I know it takes an act of Congress to get a restrictive covenant. It just seems odd to me that the Corps would be able to, or even inclined to remove a restrictive covenant.
The Corps and DES have established a very high barrier to get over to get these removals. And as I said, you have to make a demonstration of a significant public interest, and also the ability to provide replacement mitigation. The mitigation value of these wetlands that are proposed for filling have had a certain value. We're going to replace that multiple times, to be honest with you.
Through what, purchase of credits?
Through purchase of mitigation credits from an approved mitigation bank, where they've gone through a very similar process, in this case of restoring, enhancing other wetlands on that property. This is also another part of the Corps' regulatory program that it receives very high level of scrutiny, very high level of regulation, and it is the preferred method of mitigation that the Corps uses nowadays, mitigation banks.
So that process, has the process by which the Corps makes that determination been started yet?
Well, the removal of restrictive covenants from protected wetlands has been done in the past, so there's precedent there. In our particular case, they have received the proposal and are considering it. No determinations have been made at all.
Is there a public comment period?
There was a public comment period that followed the issuance of the public notice that ran through late January. But to be honest with you, the Corps will receive comments really until they issue the permit. So if people in the public are interested in commenting on this project, they're certainly free to contact the Corps and DES and whoever else will listen, and those will all be taken into account.
Okay.
But yes, there was a formal 30-day comment period after the public notice was issued, that was issued on the internet. Also notice to all the adjacent property owners. So there's very extensive coverage of that, availability of that notice.
Yeah, and I don't want to continue on this particular, but I have a number of different questions and issues that I think we need to.
Let me ask one real quick. I've heard different numbers, and Mr. Loftus referred to the letter. It quotes 102.4 acres of freshwater wetlands. As part of your team, do you know if it's 102 is accurate, or is it more?
Yes, that is an accurate number. That's correct.
Okay, so we would, if we did the expansion as it's proposed, we would affect 102 acres of freshwater wetlands.
Correct.
Is there enough uplands on this facility to do what we think we need to do without going into the wetlands?
Each of the proposed landfill cells includes a significant upland component, but to answer your question, we're essentially maximizing the use of the available uplands on the property. There are a variety of constraints besides wetlands that determine where these landfill cells can go, including proximity to neighborhoods and other things like that. Also, the geometry of the property itself constrains where these landfill cells can be physically located. So we've looked at this in very close detail, and the 3 locations within the existing property we believe are the best locations for the cells, and we believe also represents the least damaging alternative that meets the project purpose.
Let me follow that up by asking you, if the Solid Waste Authority already has other property located similar to the, or close proximity to the railroad track, and we transfer the C&D out of this facility to that facility, would that keep us out of the wetlands in the current facility that we're talking about now?
I don't know the details of your of the area you're specifically referring to, but the proposal consists of 2 C&D landfill cells and 1 MSW landfill cell. So even if we eliminated all of the C&D, we still have a significant impact associated with the MSW requirement.
Okay, I'm just looking for a way to get to stay out of those wetlands is what I'm trying to do.
I'm sorry, say that again?
For me, I said I was just looking for a way to stay out of the wetlands. And if it's transferring C&D by train up to that other, next to 1857, then that's something we need to be looking at, but I'll yield to.
It's our belief, and this is based on information and belief in our own analysis, that there is no alternative site in Horry County that would have less wetland impact. We presented information supporting that determination. We've been asked for more details on that, more detailed examination of those areas, of that potential. So we will certainly have looked at that, and we'll look at that further to consider that.
I think I want to clarify what the chairman is asking, because I don't know that it was clear. What he's suggesting is, if we transferred every bit of C&D waste that's generated in this county out of the county, which is allowed under our flow control ordinance, would that, one, expand the life cycle of the current footprint of our solid waste authority, and second, would it mitigate the amount of wetlands that would need to be filled in with expansion cells?
I'll answer the second part first, and the answer is yes.
Okay.
If we could eliminate the need for those 2 additional C&D landfill cells, we would cut the wetland impact approximately to a third of it.
1/3 or 2/3?
To about 1/3. I'd have to go look at the exact numbers, but we have 3 separate landfills. Each has significant wetland impacts, and we recognize that. So if we get rid of 2, the wetland impacts will absolutely decrease substantially. Now, as far as Ed, could you handle the first part of that question?
Yeah, I don't even know if that's a feasible alternative. The question is, if it was possible, what would the outcome be?
It would reduce the wetland impact, absolutely, if we could do that.
Why would it not be feasible, Ed? I'm just curious.
So I would say this, that anything is possible, but the cost to do it is the impact. Currently, we pay $46 a ton to process C&D materials in the landfill as it exists today. With the development plans that we have, the number will be similar to that. It'll be more, but it won't be as much as it could be. Right now, there are 3 facilities that we've identified that have the volume to accept the waste in an environmentally safe manner, and we would have to transfer those materials to a transfer station. The disposal cost alone at each of those facilities is a minimum of $100 per ton. They're about 100 miles away, so you're going to get about 2 loads a day, so our operational costs are going to be about $50 a ton. So now the county will be paying $150 a ton as opposed to $46 a ton. Your $1.2 million cost per year for your C&D materials now goes to almost $4 million.
And that would be offset by what, tipping fees?
Tipping fees. Our tipping fee would have to be in the 150. Now again, those are rough numbers. We haven't sat down. The price of fuel has jumped lately.
Sure.
Equipment costs have gone up. We haven't considered rail. It hasn't been discussed yet, so I couldn't begin to answer that question, what that cost would be, but I can only imagine it would be markedly more. But
would you be able to also transfer more tons at a time, though?
Yeah, but I have no idea about rail.
Okay.
And how much that cost is. How much does it cost to build a spur? How much does it cost for the equipment to load a transfer truck? Can you use our regular equipment or is there special equipment? What is the size of the facility that you're going to do? I mean, there's all those, and I've never done rail transfer before. I've always done trailer transfers, normal, typical transfer station, 1,000 tons a day of MSW, C&D, that sort of thing.
And I think that's part of it. We don't know the answers to that, so maybe we need to look at it. I would much rather have it on a train than on a truck on the roads blocking up traffic, but that's just me.
That's sort of been my concern about this altogether. I was sort of underwhelmed by the alternative analysis. I feel like there were alternatives that might be available to us that haven't even been looked into yet. And I feel if we're going to take the approach that we're going to start filling in 100+ acres of wetlands with municipal waste and construction waste, and we need to look at every single viable alternative available to us, including transfer stations via rail, incineration of trash, if that's healthy or safe. I don't know if it is. Whether or not commingling C&D in the municipal waste cell makes sense for a long-term fix.
So I can tell you, I'm sorry.
Full-scale recycling program on commercial as well. These are all things that need to be explored before we take the action that we're looking to take here.
And I would say this, we have done that research and we have looked at those things.
Okay.
First of all, waste energy is off the table. Right now in this state, you can only permit a facility up to 600 tons a day. And if you're not producing 3,000 tons a day, the economics don't work.
Okay.
So you won't build a waste energy plant. Recycling has been going on for 40 years that I've been in this business. The national average stays the same for the last 20 years. The national average at the state level, the average at the state level stays the same. Without mandatory recycling or some other incentive, recycling is going to continue to remain at the same level. We do what we can, but we don't affect collection.
But
We're the
what if we made
recipient.
it mandatory?
Huh?
What if we made it mandatory?
It would have an impact. There is
What
no
kind of
doubt
an
it would have it, but it wouldn't be a very, so let's talk about the MSW landfill. The MSW landfill, if you took every bit of recycling out of the MSW landfill, you're at about 40% of what goes in there. So the idea of doing 100% recycling is just not, it hasn't happened anywhere in the country. So it's just not even begin to say it's feasible. Right now, we're doing about 25%. So let's say if we went to 50%, you're still only going to cut about 10 years of life off the end of that facility. You're still going to need another facility. And that's the problem. Recycling is very good. Extends the life of the facility. I started in recycling. I love recycling. Recycling's my world. It's my jam. I can do recycling. But it's not the answer. If you commingle C&D materials in the MSW landfill, certainly you can do that. Our plan did talk about that at one point in time. But our plan also talked about looking at other disposal capacity for Class 2 waste. And if you commingle Class 2 waste in our MSW landfill, that landfill turns into a 2040 facility. And you will be well underneath the 20-year planning cycle. And you will be spending $150 a ton for 600,000 tons a year.
But what if what if we were to intermingle several different approaches at the same time?
And I think we do that now. We have a very extensive and robust recycling program, and we offer free recycling at our MRF.
Right, but I mean, if we
offer processing.
If we increased our recycling program and we looked at the transfer of C&D waste and we looked at commingling, with that, I'm not saying that we're not going to have to do something. I acknowledge that we have to do something. But could we limit what we're doing by looking at several different alternatives all at the same time, rather than just going down the same route we've been going over the last 40 years?
I guess how far do you want to kick the can down the road? It becomes the answer. Do you want it to be built in 2040? Do you want it to be built in 2050? Do you want it to be built in 2060?
Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
What a question for Mr. Bloom.
Sure.
The gentleman behind you.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you there.
But you're an environmental scientist?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So for some of the people in the room and myself, if you could give us not the engineer's version, but the junior high school version of mitigation. What exactly is mitigation when you?
Mitigation is broadly defined are steps that are taken to reduce an impact, to compensate for an impact, in particular in this context, compensate or to replace the affected wetlands. Mitigation is accomplished through restoring previously existing wetlands that have been impacted through some activities such as draining or filling them, turning them not into wetlands anymore. It consists of enhancing existing wetlands, doing things that benefit those wetlands to return them to a better condition. In the past, it has also included preserving existing wetlands, which is how we got those areas on site that were preserved under restricted covenant. And also in the past, they also considered, this is not the case anymore, creating wetlands from uplands. So it's various steps to replace the wetlands that are being affected by a project.
So if you mitigate 100 acres of wetlands, all right, and you destroy that and now it's landfill, you're telling me you can go next door and create 100 acres of natural wetlands?
In this case here, what we're proposing to fill the 102.4 acres, we're proposing to buy mitigation credits from an existing mitigation bank that's located about 8 miles away, just down Highway 90, where they have taken a large
I
piece of...
appreciate, my question is though, so you destroy 100 acres of wetlands, and you go next door, and you somehow create 100 acres of natural wetlands.
There's actually a significant multiplier on there.
Is that a yes or a no?
Generally, yes.
So you can just go over here and create 100 acres of wetlands naturally?
Well, in this case, they're restoring previously existing wetlands, returning to a wetland condition. So you can say they're creating new wetlands, sure. Now, like I said, that's done at a significant multiplier. And, there are ways of calculating, but generally speaking, when you do that kind of mitigation, you're replacing them at about a 3 or 4 to 1 ratio.
The wetlands that you would say recreate,
sure.
How do they get dried out in the first place? And if they were dried out, why wasn't somebody doing something with it?
Farmer Brown years ago dug a drainage ditch through the middle of those wetlands to turn into a farmland. Somebody built a structure on those wetlands, filled them, for example. Those are 2 very common scenarios where wetland restoration then comes into play. We're undoing damage that was done in the past to return them back to a natural condition. It's usually things that affect the hydrology of the wetland, but also sometimes just absolute destruction of them is undone. That's how mitigation is typically done.
All right. Only one point I want to make is, gentlemen, I don't want to say he made light of it, but he said that, Mr. DiSabato said, if we went to recycling, he said, well, we'll only save 10 years. And then there was something else that was brought up, well, we'll only save 5 years. And then something else, well, we're only going to save 2 years. Well, if you add 10, 5, and 2, that's 17 years. At the rate at which technology is advancing, 5 years from now, boom, they may come up with something. And I do know last week a friend of mine who is a water engineer, has done work around the world, had a meeting with the federal government. And there's a great concern, as the one lady said, that we are running out of filtered quality water. And this guy's expertise, he's been designing systems around the world to try to create clean water. And that's the job of the wetlands. So if we're able to just mystically reproduce quality wetlands to filter water, why are we depleting our water supply and having to find all these scientific ways to try to correct this problem?
I think this is part of what we need to be looking into. What I need to do, hold on now. What I need to do right now is, we're running out of time. We need to go ahead and address this vote, and then if there's more time, you can ask additional questions.
I just want one brief clarification on the action that they're taking, because I think that's important to understand, is that they're not, tell me if I'm wrong, we're not asking for them, they're not asking for us to fund the actual permitting process. They're asking for us to fund the application for the permit.
Investigation, application,
Right.
engineering fees, and things like that.
Let's just assume for the sake of argument, we approve of that in this budget, and they do go through that process. What safeguards do we have as a council to, if we decide that we don't like the way this is going?
Let me put it on the record. We
Okay.
can vote on it if we need to amend it, to put in some, like a report to INR every 2 months or something along those lines. Just different things we can get out there. All right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir?
If I may, let me get one thing clear. Are you saying that you're gonna take some property from your mitigation bank and use it to cover this when you do anything to these restrictive covenants?
That's correct.
Then why have restrictive covenants?
Well, the answer to that question is, there's a number of answers, but when those permits were originally issued, this is in the early 90s, that was the only mitigation option available at the time that really made any sense. It was cheap, it was easy to do, there weren't any mitigation banks around at the time, and it was something the Corps of Engineers and DES accepted, DHEC back at the time, accepted as a reasonable trade-off for things. So they have changed their perspective on that a lot over the years. This is now, what we're proposing now meets the highest standards of their requirements for those mitigation purposes, mitigation requirements.
Can you do what you want to do without this 100 acres?
No, I don't believe so, no.
Yes, that first.
You had to think about it, though.
What? think about what you're exactly asking there. Can we achieve the overall project purpose of providing long-term storage capacity for the Solid Waste Authority without affecting wetlands? The answer to that is absolutely no. There is no site anywhere in Horry County or anywhere in the state that would provide anywhere close to the required capacity without affecting significant wetlands and streams for that matter. So that site doesn't exist. If we were to go to a new facility, okay, to recreate what we have already, that would require approximately 1,200 acres of land. Our analysis indicates that would likely result in a wetland impact on the order of about 400 to 500 acres of wetland impact. We're proposing a plan that affects 102 acres. So we believe this is by far the best plan for protecting wetlands to achieve what is needed by the county.
So you're a winner for saving all this land and only tearing up 102 acres, right?
I'm sorry, say that again, sir?
I said you're claiming that you're better than anybody else because you only had to destroy 102 acres.
I'm not saying that, sir. I'm saying this is,
Yeah, let's go ahead.
there is a demonstrated need, a demonstrated public interest.
Point of order, motion to call the question.
Second.
All right, thank you, sir, we appreciate it. All right, I'm gonna put this on the record, Resolution R 45/2026, authorizing and approving the revised budget for the Horry County Solid Waste Authority to be included in a second reading amendment to ordinance 28/2026 to raise revenue, make appropriations, and adopt a budget for Horry County for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2027. Motion.
Motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, we need a second. Second, discussion, Al Allen.
Yes, sir. We're here today because it's my understanding that by 2047, our MSW sale will be expanded, but most of all, our C&D sales will be out in 2 years. And so that's the question that we are really looking at here. I would like to amend the motion to have the daily operating budget approved for the solid waste, but the $300,000 be diverted to studying on a transfer station, which there's land that is already owned by the Solid Waste Authority. And just for a fact, there are 32 licensed waste haulers, commercial, private licensed waste haulers inside of Horry County. I would think that they would jump at the chance to haul our C&D out of here. And I would further ask that prior to the next 2 years of the C&D sale being filled, that we work towards the project of moving all of our commercial C&D out of this county, because the citizens have not created this issue. The developers have, and they need to pay for that. They need to pay for that. And they need to pay for that to go out of the county. We shouldn't have to bear that burden. So my motion to amend is that by the next 2 years, we have the commercial C&D moving completely out of this county. And that the $300,000 approved in this would go towards a study of a transfer station along the rail, which Horry County already owns it at.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I wonder if we could expand that a bit to also investigate a mandatory recycling program.
Yes.
Sure. Absolutely, and we can also look at other sites. It doesn't necessarily have to be it just needs to be out of this 102 acres of wetlands.
Point of order,
Exactly.
we're dealing with the budget and a resolution, so maybe after we pass this resolution, we can come back and talk about action steps that I&R can take on issues that affect the landfill and its longevity in ways that we can expand that in the future.
I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
You okay with that, Dennis? All right, any further discussion? All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Goes down. Okay, any further discussion? Steps?
Well, sir,
Back to the
a
resolution.
comment of a personal
Hold on a second.
principle.
Hold on, point of order. Back to the original motion as amended. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, we're good now. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. It's not the citizens' responsibility to find a place to put this, my friend. They elected us to find a place for it. It's up to us to make those tough choices.
So Dennis, what were you saying about INR and what you would like to see them study going here in the future?
Well, in addition to, you know, doing a study to determine the viability of a transfer station, expanding that study to also include the viability of a mandatory recycling program, not just residential, the MSW, but commercial recycling as well.
And really all options that we're talking about today.
1000%.
You know, for sure.
We have
Is that
to.
okay with you, Chairman?
Certainly, yes, sir. How would we, you want to report like every 2 months or something, or?
Quarterly would be fine, I would think.
Okay, we need to take, Mr. Parliamentarian, do we need to take action on that, or is it just guidance on that?
That would be up to the chairman of the committee.
INR? Okay, all right, we'll let you.
And I also would like a full update on the water testing as well.
Yes, part of it.
I thought there was a lot of good
Please.
points brought up today.
Yes,
And I
sir,
think,
we haven't seen one in
when was the last time INR received water testing?
a couple of years.
Yeah. It's gotta be at least 4 years.
Before you
Oh,
go.
yeah, so, because we'd asked for it quarterly, and.
It might be
we
longer than that,
haven't
because
received
it might have been when I first got on council.
That's right.
That's 10 years ago.
So I think it'd be incumbent to have
They have
quarterly
it
water
quarterly.
testing
Yes, sir.
to INR.
All right.
Is that something that needs to be tied into the budget, or what's the best way to make sure we have action steps in place?
We are conducting certain testing, as well as solid waste does separate testing. We'll make sure all the testing that are being done today are sent to INR, and if we can decide if additional is needed.
Very good. And I don't see a need for an executive session. If nobody else has any other questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
There you are. Thank y'all for coming out.